Okay, this is 2.1a, the start of our Unit 2 for housing. So we already obviously filled out the key terms and answered this journal question about our futures. Here, though, we're just going to kind of make a note as well before we get going. So this happened last unit in the healthcare question, where we might find the cost for a week, and then we need to find the cost for a year or something like that. Outside of the context of just, if Sally makes $5,000 a week, how much does she make for a year? Outside of questions like that, we have to use that conversion skill often. So in any problem, I'm going to kind of give you a warning here, this is going to keep happening. In any problem, we need to keep an eye out for time periods. What I recommend you do is circle them whenever we see them. So again, the time periods are daily, bi-weekly, weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, annual. Quarterly is also one that we haven't had to work with yet, but that is a time period. If there are multiple in the question, they need to be the same. Otherwise, we have to do the math to make them the same, meaning we need to do conversions, right? So for an example here, this is not the type of question we're necessarily going to have, but here's how I would annotate it to understand, oh, I need to do a couple conversions here to make these time periods be the same, if that makes sense. So I'd go, Alex earns $17 per, hey, an hour is a time period, so I would circle that and keep going. If he works 52 hours, okay, so far so good. Hour, that's fine. They match, right? So let's keep going. So if he works 52 hours every week, okay, so here now we have an hour into a week, and then it says how much would he make in a year. So you need to keep an eye out for this. Now it is very possible that throughout the whole question, it goes week, good. You don't do anything. It's only in this case where it said hour and then week and then year. Not those time periods don't match. They aren't the same. So we need to go from hourly to a week to a year, yeah? So it says $17 per hour. So just to solve this one first, we would want to find out if he works 52 hours in 1 week, $17 per hour. We're going to pretend for the purpose of this question, we're not looking at overtime because this is just an example question that's supposed to be easy. If he works $17 per hour and then works 52 hours per week, how would we find how much he works or how much he makes in a week? We should multiply, right? This per tells us to multiply. So 17 times 52. Why did I do 52? That's a terrible number. There's a reason why it's a terrible number. I don't know why I chose 52. Again, we're just pretending he doesn't make any overtime. It's possible he doesn't. So this is at $884 in 1 week. Now, the reason why I don't know why in the world I chose 52 as the number of hours for this problem, I really should have chosen something different, is because now we're trying to go from a week to a year. How do we go from a week to a year? This is how much they make in 1 week. How do we find how much they make in a year? Multiply by 52. Because there's 52 weeks in a year, I really should not. I'm going to change that for future. I don't know why I chose 52 hours. That's very confusing. So this is how much they would make in the year, 45,968. So again, we're not doing problems like this because again, this unit is about housing, not employment. However, we do have to keep an eye out for these time periods and do conversions. Otherwise, we're going to get the problem wrong. So we got to be careful. So let's go ahead and look at the first one. So this is becoming less and less common. But back in the day when things were much more affordable and housing wasn't super duper expensive and wages were higher, it's recommended that you budget at most 25 to 30% of your monthly income. See what I'm doing? I'm reading the problem and I'm circling time periods. For your monthly housing costs, find the recommended age for monthly housing costs. So good, month. So far, I don't need to worry about anything because all of those match, right? I don't need to multiply by 12. I don't need to do anything. So what we're saying here is based on how much this person makes per month. Oh, hey, still good. Month. I don't need to do anything special. we're going to find how much they should budget for housing. So you do not want to spend more than 25 to 30% of your income on housing. You obviously have money for it, but it's going to cut into your bills for food, for gas, for your cell phone, for internet, for everything else that you need. It's going to start cutting into that. And even if you can afford to pay for your housing, you might feel like your budget is going to be very tight and you can't afford anything else. So this problem is actually very simple. All we're going to do, if this is the recommended range, we're going to find 25% of 5,000, get that number. We're going to find 30% of 5,000, get that number. And that's the range for apartments or housing that you could be looking at. So go ahead and do this. Again, 25% to 30%. So I want you to find, go ahead and do real quick, 25% of 5,000. This is on the lower range of where they could be looking. Go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so we should know 0.25 is 25%. Excuse me. Again, I'm going to eventually start skipping this step, guys, but you need to know that this is what I'm doing to get 0.25. 25 divided by 100, 0.25. Means to multiply times 5,000. So let's see what we got here. 0.25 times 5,000. We get 1,250. So obviously, if Barbara wanted to, she'd get an apartment much cheaper than 1,250. But if she's looking at the top end of the range of houses she should be looking at or apartments she should be looking at, she'd be totally fine to get an apartment that costs that much. Now we need the upper end, kind of the highest she should go. So we need 30% now of 50,000. Sorry, 5,000. She really should not be going higher than this on her housing. Otherwise, it's going to cut into her other bills. So go ahead and find 30% of 5,000. Okay, so this is 0.30 times 5,000. You have to know how I got that 0.30. Do it in your calculator if you're not sure. But I divided by 100. So this is 1,500. So this is our answer. Because it says find the range, a range is from this number to this number. So she can be looking for housing within that range. She can go cheaper, of course, but if she goes higher, again, the budget's not going to be great. Let's go ahead and look at B. We're going to try it again. Mark makes $45,000 per year. There's a time period, and notice this went month, 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 year. So we need to make them match. It says 25 to 30% of your monthly income, right? Because you pay your bills every month. You pay your rent every month. So we want to know how much he makes per month so we can budget based off of that. So I want you to go ahead. He makes $45,000 in a year. How much does he make in a month? Go ahead and find that. Well, 45,000 divided by 12. Once again, guys, this is a skill that we're going to have to keep doing outside the context of pay. Let's see, divide by 12. Okay, so each month he makes $37.50 monthly. Okay, now this is good. Now we can figure out his range. So the question once again says, how much should he budget? So all we need to do is find 25% of $37.50. We need to find 30% of $37.50. And these two answers will be our numbers, these two answers will be our answers, and then we're done. We're not subtracting them or anything like that. This isn't subtraction. This is saying from $1,250 to $1,500. So go ahead, find 25% of the monthly income, find 30%, write them down. Okay, so 25% should be 0.25 times 37.50. So 0.25 times 37.50. We get 937.50. So that's the lower end of the range. And over here, we've got 0.30 times 37.50. 1125. So, and this is our answer. Again, we circle both of these. We just go, boop, there's our answer. So that is the range of monthly costs for his apartment, the rent, that he could be looking for and still be in a safe budget. Lower, obviously, totally fine. Higher, you're going to be cutting into other bills. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just going to have to cut this out. Yeah, we'll do this. Okay, so now even though we talked about that just now, that 25 to 30% is a good range typically to budget for housing. Sometimes you might need to budget for less if you have to pay for other things more than somebody else, right? A person's bills are particular to themselves. Maybe you have a lot of loans and debt, and therefore you have to pay that off, and so you can't afford a 25 to 30% apartment. Yeah, you might need to be cheaper. So we're going to talk about in this question is now with other bills, let's look at how much money he would have left. Let's read this. Alex makes $61,992 per year. Once again, please get in the habit of doing that. And pays about 20% of his gross monthly. Hey, those do not match. We're going to keep that in mind. Income and federal and state taxes. He wants to buy an apartment to rent. Use 25% of his monthly salary to find out how much he should budget for apartment. So Alex is saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the lower end. I want to budget 25%. Now, if you notice, it says here, oh, it's on the formula sheet. On the formula sheet, we're talking about the gross salary. So yes, he pays taxes here, but we are going to find in this question 25% of his gross monthly salary. So we're not going to worry about the taxes yet. That's going to be in B. We will look at taxes afterwards. So we need to find 25% of his monthly salary if this is his annual. So try this again. Ignore the taxes right now. This is the annual salary. We need the monthly, and then take 25% of it. Go ahead and try it. We just did this. Okay, so 61,992 is a year. I should have divided by 12 because it's a monthly salary, guys. If it was a biweekly, we would not divide by 12. I want you to get that out of your head. So this is how much he makes in a month. And once again, we're not worrying about taxes yet. 5,1, that's 6,6. So he wants to go, okay, I'm going to budget 25%, so 0.25. And he can look for apartments around this cost. So 1291.50. He can look for apartments around that cost because that is 25% of how much he makes in a month. So say he gets an apartment that costs exactly this much. We want to figure out then how much money he will have. We can add here left over if that will help you understand what we're going to be doing. Determine how much money per month, once again, he will have after taxes and rent are paid. So let's break this down. How much money did he have per month to start with? It's on the screen here. He had $5,166 to start with. What we're figuring out is after, so left over here means to subtract, rent and taxes are paid. How much money does he have left over? So we already going to drop this down. 5,166 minus, we just figured out rent is 1291.50 if he gets an apartment that costs exactly that much. Minus, well, now we need to find the taxes. So 20% of his monthly income, we know how much his monthly income is. That's how much he's paying towards taxes. So find this. To get the taxes, we need to find 20% of his monthly income. Go ahead and do it. Okay, well, it's 20% of 5,166. So 20% is 0.20. Divide by 100 if you aren't sure, times his monthly income, 5,166. This is going to tell us the taxes. Okay, so we get 1033.20. So this will now tell us how much money he's going to have left over for everything else he needs to buy. Food. Yeah. Again, cell phone, internet, credit card bill, right? There's lots of things that you could be needing to get. So 1291.50 minus 1033.20. Okay, so he has 2,841.30. So he has this much money left over, if I did my math right, looks like I did, every month. So what he would need to do, and we'll talk about this later because budgeting is going to be, I think, our next unit. He would need to assess, okay, after I've paid for rent and after I've paid my taxes and everything, do I have enough money left over for everything else I need or want? And if not, he's probably going to want to look for a cheaper apartment. So this is part of the process of looking for an apartment, is realizing how much can you afford and still pay for everything else you need and not be like pennies left over after you paid for everything else you need, right? So I want you to go ahead and try this question now. This one's you're going to try it on your own. Here is her monthly income. So this is already good to go. It's already a month. She pays 24% of her monthly gross earnings, good, in taxes, 15% of her monthly gross income for student loans. She uses 15% to pay towards credit cards, and she wants to be able to rent an apartment that costs this much. Will she be able to make the payment for the apartment? So we need to figure out how much is left over. So I'm going to kind of give you a hint here. We have the 3840 is how much she's starting with. Minus, we need to find out how much she's paying for taxes. That's 24% of this. She's got her student loan. We need to find out what that is because it's a percentage, guys. You are not subtracting 0.15. It's 0.15 of this we are subtracting, and also her credit card, which is once again another 15% of her monthly. So we are taking these individual percentages of this number, and then we're going to see how much money she has left over. Go ahead and try it and see if you can figure it out. Okay, so taxes are 0.24, that's 24%, times her monthly income. This is taxes, 0.24, oops. 0.24 times 3840. So this is taxes is 921.6. For her student loan is 15%, so 0.15 times 3840. Because again, it's still 15% of her monthly income. That's still her monthly income. That's not changing. 576 is her student loan. And then the credit card is also another 15%, but obviously it's going to be the same number. So I'm just going to write it again. That's her credit card. So let's take this all away and let's see if she can afford this apartment. She needs to have at least $1,800 left over. So 3840 minus 921.6, oops, 3840 minus 921.6 minus 576 minus 576. So let's see what she has left over. Okay, so left over, she has 1766.4. So what do we think? Can she afford this apartment that has $1,800 a month? Nope. She cannot afford this apartment. She would need to have at least $1,800 for us to say yes, granted. If she had exactly $1,800 left over, she would have no money for anything else. Now, we are not here to judge, though. We are mathematicians. If it came out that she had $1,800 exactly, we'd go, well, yeah, she can make the payment. She can't afford anything else, but she can make the payment for the apartment. Yeah. So we're not here to judge a person's choices. We are just to look at the math and say, yeah, she doesn't have enough money left over, or she has exactly enough. Yes, go for it. Why not, Bethany? But again, in this case, did not have enough money left over. So the answer was no. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, let me double check here real quick. Again, I have it actually right here. Forgot that I picked it up. There it is. Okay, so in your journal, this is actually in your journal. I need to make sure I write this down. Normally on page 3. This is 2.1a, budgeting for moving out. So if you see it right there in your journal, 2.1a, budgeting for moving out. So if you work a full-time job at minimum wage, now let's go ahead and change this. It's $12.15. I was proved wrong about that. It's $12.15 per hour. What would be about 25% of how much you make in a month? So if you currently are working a minimum wage job, or when you graduate high school, you're working a minimum wage job full-time, and you're like, you know what, I just want out of my parents' house. This is the math you would want to do to figure out if you should be, what you can afford to move out. So let's try this. We've got 40 hours per week, $12.15 per hour. We want to know what's about 25% of how much you make in a month. This answer is going to represent about how much you should aim for per person when looking for an apartment. I'll come back to that. Let's do the math first. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kind of cheat this, because as we know, there is not exactly 4 weeks in a month except for February. And even then, every 4 years, that's not true. In January, for example, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We got a little extra here and a little extra here. However, when we budget, typically, we budget based off of 4 weeks worth of pay just to make it simple. Almost everybody does it that way, even though a month has not exactly 4 weeks worth of pay. So let's go ahead and find how much we make in a month. It's $12.15 per hour. We work 40 hours per week. How do we find how much we make in that week? $12.15 per hour, 40 hours, what should we do? We should multiply. Once again, I'm saying 15 because we looked that up. This is the new current minimum wage. So this is how much you would make in 1 week. Obviously, again, before taxes are taken out, but that's what this is based off of, your pay before taxes are taken out. Now, we cannot do this always, so don't get stuck in their head that you can do this, but let's estimate that there are 4 weeks exactly in a month. Again, there's not, but if there's 4 weeks in a month, we should multiply by 4. So this is how much you would make monthly if you worked minimum wage. And again, this is obviously before taxes or anything is taken out. So let's go ahead and see then how much you could budget to move out on. So take 1944, take 25%, go ahead and do that. So 25% of 1944, I know that 25% divided by 100 is 0.25, of is multiply times 1944. So 0.25 times 1944. Okay, so 486. So what this represents is how much you should aim for per person when you're looking for an apartment on minimum wage. So what this means is, this is why I say per person. When you move out, if you move out pretty soon after high school and you're not working a very high paying job, it is very likely to 100% that you are going to need a roommate. $486, you will not find a single 1-bedroom for that much in Phoenix right now. Rent in the past decade has skyrocketed. When I moved out with my friends, and we talked about this because I'm going to talk about it, I was able to pay for a 3-bedroom, or we had a 3-bedroom for like $850 a month. Good luck finding that nowadays. And if you can, it's going to be roach infested and in a very bad area and probably plenty of issues. So if you want to move out of high school, start talking with some friends, seeing if they're interested, seeing if they're responsible, because if you can split a 2-bedroom, which is like $1,000, you can find a 2-bedroom for $1,000. You guys can split a 2-bedroom for $1,000 and pay $500 each. That's about in the range, yeah? So keep that in mind, yeah? If you want to move out, this is how you should do your math to figure out how much you can afford.